So there are a couple of different perspectives on this question, and what you believe about how God created the earth is going to influence how you answer a question like this. So just to be totally upfront with you, I'm going to give you my answer to this question, but I think it's important to note that my answer is not the only answer out there. So you could do some other research and find some other opinions on this particular question. So in order to answer this question, though, we need to understand just what was affected by the fall into sin. And so we turn to Scripture, we go to Genesis 3, we see that after Adam and Eve sinned, God curses the ground, the earth. And it's now going to be a dangerous place that is going to work back against its inhabitants. God also, as a part of that process, human beings are affected certainly as well. Man is going to work by the sweat of his brow now, and the earth is going to work back against him. There's going to be thorns and thistles and all kinds of things. God also says that women are going to have pain in childbearing from that time on. But in Romans 8, Paul actually goes one step further, and he says that not just humanity is affected by the fall, but the entire creation. Okay, so in Romans 8, Paul says that creation itself has been subjected to futility and bondage and corruption, and that it's even groaning in anticipation of its redemption. Okay, so it's not just the earth that has been affected by the fall, but the entire universe, not just humanity, but everything in the universe has been affected by man's fall into sin and this curse that God has put down on everything. And so that, of course, includes animals. Animals have been affected by the fall. So then how are animals affected by the fall? Well, if we hold that the whole creation was affected by the fall, then there are some assertions we can make based on some biblical evidence. So if there was no death anywhere in creation before the fall, then we can assume that animals were included in that perfect creation. Animals did not die. That also means then that there was no predation. Animals didn't kill and eat each other. In Genesis 1, actually, before the fall, God says that he gives all vegetation as food for both man and animals. So it's possible that animals were actually vegetarians before the fall. And then after the fall, when sin entered and drastically affected everything, only then did animals begin to prey upon one another and eat one another. So that's one assertion we could make. We could also say that animals didn't die or have pain or accidents, just like Adam and Eve lived in a perfect world. They didn't have to worry about, getting hurt or getting sick or any of those things. The same would be true of animals before the fall. If animals were not affected by the fall to this degree, then that means that they were killing and eating each other before the world was cursed. And that creates some real theological difficulties. That would mean then that God created animals to kill one another, and so that death existed in the world before sin. If animals weren't affected by the fall and they've always just been who they are for all of time, then that means that there's always been animals killing one another, hunting one another, animals dying of disease and starvation. And so the animal kingdom is a brutal place in which animals literally fight for their lives. And it's somewhat difficult to believe that a creation in which animals eat each other, starve to death, and are subject to disease and decay and so on would be a creation that God would look back upon and call it very good. It just doesn't seem to fit. So I believe that animals were affected by the fall in some of the same ways that humans were. Animals now live in a world that would work against them when the fall happens. They now live in a world that experiences death and pain and disease. They now live in a world after the fall where they would either kill or be killed. And there are more reasons to believe this, and to believe that this fallen world in which animals kill and suffer is not the way God designed it to be. And that is that when Jesus returns and creates a new heavens and a new earth, it's going to resemble that time before the fall when things lived in perfect peace without fear of predation or death or disease or any of those things. In fact, in Isaiah chapter 11, starting with verse 6, Isaiah says, "The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the lion and the fattened calf together, and a little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young shall lie down together, And the lion shall eat straw like the ox. The nursing child shall play over the hole of the cobra, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the viper's den. They shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. Now, that is an incredible description from the book of Isaiah of a new earth that Jesus is going to someday create, and you can see how it's a world of peace. I mean, you've got predators living at peace with prey. They're lying down together. They're not eating each other. One's not afraid of the other and running away. Children are not afraid of typically what would be considered wild and dangerous animals, right? It says a little child is going to lead these animals. Children are going to play with poisonous snakes even. So this is a picture of what will come in the future when Jesus returns. And I think it's also a picture of the way it was before the fall for animals. So were animals affected by the fall? Yes, they absolutely were, in a lot of the same ways that human beings were. We now live in this world that has disease and suffering and death, whereas at one point in time, that was not the case, and that was even true for animals.